For two-point perspective, there is a reason that comparing angles and ratios is so important. We're going to see if you can figure out why at the end of this presentation. The first thing you need to know about perspective is that there are some common things no matter what kind of perspective you're drawing. Items drawn in perspective will have a vanishing point, or where the object seems to disappear. Additionally, there are three main types of line when you're drawing architectural drawings like what we're going to do for the hallway drawing or for a building. Those line types are vertical, horizontal, and diagonal. Any line that is diagonal should be going to a vanishing point. There are some differences to perspective. For example, one-point perspective is like looking at the front of a box. Two-point perspective is like looking at the corner of a box, and three-point perspective is like looking at that box rotating in space. Another thing to be aware of is measuring in a drawing. We talked about this briefly with the cylinder drawing, but you should be aware that you can take one object and use that object to make the entire drawing proportional. Here, the person is measuring the head of a mountain lion and comparing it to the rest of the body of the mountain lion, so it's completely in proportion. The same thing can be done for a classroom or hallway. Here I have measured the smartboard in the room and compared that length to how wide the classroom is. There are 5 smartboard lengths in the wall above the smartboard in this image. When you begin your thumbnails, you can take an image with your phone and print the image with Photoshop or look through a viewfinder to practice your composition. Remember, composition is how the page is arranged. After you have practiced the composition in a thumbnail, start blocking in the drawing. When you start blocking in or drawing the initial outlines of your drawing on the larger good paper, use a number 2 pencil. It's sometimes easier to do this after drawing what looks like a math graph very lightly in your printed photo and on your paper. We will refer to these sections as quadrants, just like in math. Dividing the page in half both directions will allow you to focus on one square at a time, creating more accurate drawings. Make sure you compare the diagonal lines to the analog clock face as well. This will keep the drawing looking more proportional. When you create a two-point perspective drawing, you will need to start with the vertical line that is the corner of the hallway. Figure out what quadrant of the photo the corner is in and place the vertical line in the same quadrant on the larger good paper. Then use the ceiling and floor lines in order to find the vanishing points. Often the vanishing points on a two-point perspective drawing will be off the page. In this case, you need to add pieces of paper, I call them wings, to figure out where the vanishing point is. Attaching the paper in this manner will allow you to be more accurate as you're drawing. It is also suggested that you tape the wings on and do not remove them until you have finished creating value. Before taking the wings off to create value, trace where the tape is to do the final details after the value is complete. Not removing the wings when you do value will create a texture that you will not be able to remove. In this example, the artist drew the left vanishing point first, the green lines, then found the second vanishing point, the orange lines. After that, the artist estimated where the other corners of the walls were by measuring how far they were from the edge of the page, from either the left or the right side. Here they are represented by pink dotted lines. Once the corners were drawn, the artist continued figuring out where the diagonal lines went. Remember, anything diagonal goes to one vanishing point or the other. Just like in one-point perspective, you need to estimate how far from the edges of each object the next object is, so all items in the drawing are correctly proportioned. Using one object, like a door or display case, can help you keep things proportional if you use the object and compare it to others in the drawing. If you make something too large or too small, just erase part of it and make it the correct size. The next thing the artist did was figure out the reflection on the floor. Realize that the reflection is an extension of the original image, and lines from one wall that went to a specific vanishing point go to the same vanishing point in the reflection. Again, any line that is diagonal goes to a vanishing point. The only lines in two-point perspective that don't go to a vanishing point are the ones at the corners of objects. All other lines go to one vanishing point or the other. The lights on the ceiling will go to one vanishing point or the other, like a parallelogram, because there is no corner of the wall to start from when drawing the lights. Now we're back to that initial essential question. Why is comparing ratios and angles so important in perspective drawing? If you continue to measure carefully and represent those measurements accurately on the page, your drawing should look more proportional and realistic.